Hello, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Breaking Inside Hollywood. I'm Ramphis Myrtle, co-president, co-founder of Beast to East Productions. I'd like to bring up first Arturo Castro, actor, known for Narcos, Broad City, and Bushwick. I'd also like to bring up Tamara P. Carter. She's a staff writer on HBO's The Leftovers. Quadruple threat, Miles Orion Feldsot, actor, writer, producer, director. Come on board. He has a show on ABC, American Coco. And last but not least, William Robotham. I got it right. Will is at 3 Arts Entertainment. He's a talent manager, also producer. He worked at the notorious Scott Rudin, Protozoa Pictures, Dimensions, and Ari Emanuel's Endeavor. All right, so let's start right away with the first question. To get things started, going with the theme of the panel, tell us about your first big break into Hollywood.
First big break. I mean, Broad City, I guess, was the first pilot I ever auditioned for. And I auditioned in a very small room, so I didn't know what it was. And then I showed up and it was Amy Poehler at the callback. So I was very nervous, and I guess that was my break. But Hollywood, I guess it was a film that nobody watched called Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. I think my mom watched it and my girlfriend, definitely they both did. But that was a film with Ang Lee, and it was the first sort of like multi-million-dollar thing I've ever been on. Multi-million-dollar thing. It sounds douchey. It is.
Tamara.
I never really had a break into Hollywood. I moved to LA about 10 years ago. I'm from Brooklyn, born and raised, and I took the long way. I interned for 4 years at Sony, and then I went to grad school at UCLA, and then I've just been a cog in a wheel for 10 years. And then I had reps and just the normal LA way, which is you just write yourself to death and you hope someone pays attention to you. And it took me 6 or 7 years to get the attention of management and agents. And after that, I just started working. I started working for ABC on The Fosters, and then I jumped over to HBO and I worked for Jason Katims and then The Leftovers. And then I popped out to my own thing. So I don't know, I never had a break into Hollywood. It was more of a just slow, hard,
a slow tear into it.
Yeah.
I would say that's an accurate description of breaking into Hollywood. I don't know if you would call this a break, but my first thing that I worked on in Hollywood was as a PA on a show called Trick It Out. Which was a car show, and my job was just to throw buckets of water down on the pavement and take a push broom and put it around for the wet down. And I was like, oh, this is Hollywood. But I did a similar path of writing myself to death, of writing a lot of pilots before I got representation.
I don't know if I also had a break. After school, I drove out to LA in the car and kind of got a break getting a job waiting tables. To be honest, it's really hard to get a job in LA waiting tables. It's
You need a headshot, actually.
You need a headshot, but lucky enough, I got a job waiting tables, and I had gone out there because I thought, at 22, thinking I knew what I wanted to do, I was going to be an agent, of course. And I guess the big break was, when I finally got that call from WME saying, "We have a spot for you in the mailroom, and come and get coffee and make photocopies and do all that great stuff." So I guess that's the break.
How long were you working in entertainment before you got that break, and what were you doing up until then?
Yeah, I did every student film and every theater piece I could. Well, the thing is, when I graduated from school, there weren't really a lot of roles for people that looked like me, unless I wanted to be in the kitchen, which I did. I played My first role was, the character name is Dishwasher Juan on The Good Wife. I'm like, just pick one. He's either dishwasher or Juan. Or is there more than one Juan? What is, I don't get it. But I was doing, off-Broadway theater and just theater anywhere that people would allow me. A lot of sex ed videos too, and English as a second language videos. I did that for a long time until having Alana sort of rescue me from that. But it was a good 10 years, man. It was a good 10 years of scraping by, living in a basement, and wondering how I was gonna live. I suck at being a waiter. I tried being a waiter, and I suck at it so bad. I lasted 2 weeks, so I was like, well, I better get good at acting then, So suck at something is my advice to you guys, and then you'll find acting.
Okay, let me just be honest with you. I remember like when I was in grad school and I'd go to these panels and you listen to people and you just think like, they're just so full of it. They don't want to share. They don't want to tell us how you really got in. Somebody had sex with someone else. Just like you just come up with all these stories, you're thinking that someone had a break, and the reality of it is that no one gets a break. Like Hollywood, for lack of a better way of describing it, is actually on some level a meritocracy. Like you do have to work, and it's a push pin and paper clips type of like situation that you find yourself in, and you think that you're gonna there's no such thing as really getting discovered in a mall anymore. It's like you show up, you learn the craft, and that is the way in, is to be good at what you do, and it often takes a long time to figure out how to make that happen. And so for me, it was, I was spent 4 years as an intern. Like no one is an intern for 4 years. Like I was at Sony, I worked in seven different departments. I worked in international television, I worked in marketing, I worked in festival acquisitions. And, I was horrible at being an assistant. I couldn't really keep a paid job. What I could do was read scripts and write coverage and learn the craft. And like, that is pretty much, that's what did it for me. It's still what do. It's still what does it for me. It's all those years of interning, and school was cute, but school didn't really give me school was like a practice, like a place you went to practice what you learned, So I would say if you have an opportunity to intern or to work as an assistant, that is the best way to break in. It's to learn it and to suffer, and to make sure you're working on your craft and to kind of allow yourself to grow and change and figure things out along the way. And you kind of look back and you're like, oh, I know how to do the job. Someone does give you an opportunity. You can show off, you can show what you know, and then those opportunities tend to keep coming.
I agree with everything that you just said. I think it's a combination. Like there's two big schools that I applied. One was you work the jobs that you have available to you. I was an assistant, I was a PA, I did all that shit. I met a lot of people, and that was really valuable. And then the other side is like when that executive producer does look over and go, hey man, let me read your script. You need to have one. So then also doing the job that you want to do. And some people have success doing one or the other. I just happen to do a combination of the two. There's people that, they work their way up from assistant, and then they become, producers and directors, and they do all that, and they bypass the stage where you go out and make your own shit. And then there's people that just put their stuff on YouTube, and that's how they have success. I did both, and somewhere in between found some kind of way to quote unquote break in. There are a few people that get breaks, and their parents work in the industry. So if your parents don't, then you have to work really hard.
Yeah, that's a good point. I definitely did not know anybody when I got to LA, and one thing I noticed is I was an assistant for 5 years, which seemed like forever back then, and I think assistants nowadays can be in that position for upwards of 7. I mean, I think that's a reality. And the benefit there was I didn't really want to do anything else, and so I knew if I just kept at it and tried to do better than everyone else, just people would just get fed up and leave. And so that worked for me. I mean, I saw so much turnover in those early years at the assistant level that you were sort of given a leg up just by people just throwing in the towel. So I think some of what they were saying and the perseverance and just being there in those early days are, it's so important. I don't even know if I answered this question.
I was going to add to that. It's super difficult. I was going to say in New York, it's a little bit different because the industry's not here. There are aspects of the industry here for you, but it's different in LA. everywhere you turn, there's an opportunity to staff somewhere or to try something, where here you kind of have to create those opportunities the best you can. And so what I find, particularly as I just moved back to New York about a year and a half ago, is the hours that you spend doing both jobs, like, count them, like, they matter. So for instance, my friends here in New York, a lot of times they go, oh, I'm gonna go off and write, and it's not a job to them. It's kind of like something that they're doing, like I'm writing at a cafe. Whereas my friends in LA, they work, from 7 and they get to, get off at 6:30, 7, and then they take a break, and then they work on their writing or on their directing or acting, and they're training like athletes until about 1 in the morning, and they sleep and do it all over again. They do that for about 5 or 6 years. And so the culture of, churning out work and working on both aspects of yourself is like, to me, everybody that I know, I don't know anyone that has done it the other way. I only know people who have made it and who have kind of worked both sides of the coin.
I can only speak as an actor, but, well, I'm coming out with my own show now, which I'm now becoming, I suddenly realized that if there was a role that I wanted to do, I had to write it myself. And so if you guys are actors, I don't know how many are actors here, but listen, man, it's so much easier now than when I first started, 12 years ago to shoot something, And Abby and Alana from Broad City, that's their magic. They didn't get into any UCB team, so they were like, why don't we just write our own versions of ourselves, And I would really encourage you to, just really fuck up and fail at, like, put characters out there, or put people that you would like to see. And one thing I have found is that, when selling the show, people want you to have a voice. It doesn't matter what the voice is, it just has to be specific, right? You have to be, people are gonna help you amplify it, and everybody's gonna give you suggestions as to what your voice is. Nobody can really tell you. But my advice to you would be, like, start honing that voice in now. I guess, as she says, to like hone it right after work, or whenever you get a chance. But hone it so that when you get into one of those rooms, you're not there for people to tell you who you are. You're there with this sort of take it or leave it attitude, not in a cocky way, but in a way of like, this is as best as I can do, man. This is what I can bring to the table. And that's better than good enough for me. So I just would encourage you to, like, there's nothing stopping you from writing the next cool show, That was beautiful. I really practiced it in front of the mirror. My girlfriend's like, she's got cue cards up. Thank you, man.
Awesome. So next question, what inspired you to go into entertainment, and how did you choose your specific career in the industry? So why did you become an actor? I'm very lucky, and I guess you guys as well. It seems like that I always knew what I wanted to do, I saw acting, I grew up in Guatemala, and when I was 12 years old, I was really chubby, and this girl I really liked wouldn't say hi to me or anything, so I knew that she was in theater class. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to theater class. Obviously that's stalking now, but back then it was cute. and then I discovered theater through that, and I guess at 17 my perception changed. This teacher from Juilliard came down to Guatemala, and she gave me this monologue, the Hamlet to be or not to be monologue. And listen, I was this kid, my English wasn't great, and I'm like, this really seems like, hieroglyphics to me. But my father passed away, like right when I got the monologue. And I was suddenly, this monologue made a lot of sense to me about like, oh, death, like what is death? Like what is, why are we afraid of what we don't know? And I was like, oh shit, I get it. And so to me, acting started becoming sort of a healing tool. And if it was a healing tool for me, I really wanted to aspire to bring it as a healing tool to others, And I know that sounds cheesy, but that is listen, fame for fame's sake is empty. I've met a lot of people that just go make a shitty porn or whatever you want for fame, right? Or a reality show. No offense if anybody's in a reality show. But there has to be a higher purpose, because the fame thing comes and goes and it fluctuates. But my purpose is I want to amplify the things I care about, immigrant rights, education, and I know that I can only do that from a position of power. So I'm using the skills that I have to get to that position of power. But that's how I've viewed acting the whole time, and yeah, I've never wanted to do anything else but.
The question is, what inspired me to go into entertainment?
Correct. And why did you choose your career path?
Yeah, I really wasn't the kid that knew. I was just kind of like a C. I graduated with like a 2.23 from like college and high school. So I wasn't one of those kid valedictorian types. So kind of like, you know, I was a kid in the back of the class, just barely awake. And my family, they're all artists for the most part, working class artists. My family's been in New York for almost 100 years, and they're all jazz artists, and they all play instruments. My brothers play a million instruments. I don't play a single instrument. You know, the pressure, you know, in a family like that, when you don't play anything, like I couldn't play anything at all. The only thing I could do...
Shaker?
I'm just not coordinated. I found that out the hard way. So my brother's trying to teach me how to play keys, and I just couldn't get going. So I was like, all right, writing is just like one hand for now. I was like, I can do this. And I think we've been through enough trauma. You know, musicians' kids are all freaked. So like, you know, friends, but so we've been through enough trauma to kind of put like the trauma with like the one hand coordination. I was like, well, writing, I can do that. And I decided early on to be a writer. My family was like, well, we're all broke, and so music hasn't really served us, so we don't want you guys to be broke, so none of you can be professional musicians. You've got to find another trade. Sorry, right? And they were like, I was good in like one science class, like one. And everyone was like, oh, you should be a doctor. And I was like, I mean, everyone. And I was just kind of like, what are you guys saying? I like piercings. And I was like, all right, let's try that. So I went to Hampton and tried pre-med, and I took it's always a winding road with me. It's never like, oh yeah, I just broke into Hollywood, or yeah, I just know exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, like, I was a biochem major. I worked in pharmaceuticals, sales, and then as a lobbyist in DC right out of school. Really because the job was only 4 hours a day. So I was like, oh, I can do that, it's fine. You just eat and talk shit to doctors, it's great, right? And then, but I was writing the entire time. And I think the thing here is that sometimes, you know, you need support that we don't often have. Like in LA, if you want to be a writer in entertainment, like there's like advertisements everywhere, and there are parents everywhere who are pushing you to do that. Whereas I find that like here on the East Coast, we have more, you know, an academic sort of very snobby way about, you know, pushing our children towards certain ideals. And so, you know, I didn't exactly know that I knew I wanted to write. I just thought it was something I could do on the side. I didn't know how writers made money. And then I ended up writing a book because I was so traumatized about losing my grandmother and losing some people real close to me. So I escaped into my art and found my way. I was like, well, this is the only thing that I'm good at, and this is the only thing that I want to do. So, you know, I was just like you, I was like, I gotta make this work. Yeah. So I don't know really if you call that inspiration, but you know, I just kind of kept at it, and it's the only thing that I have to show up to every day, or else I just feel like I'm in I'm completely dysfunctional. So that's, you know, that's my story. I don't know if it's an inspiring story.
I think I always knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't necessarily know that that was a real job that you could have. Like, I didn't know that TV writer or movie writer, producer could be something that you could do. I grew up in a town where you either, you know, became a fisherman or you grew weed. Those were the two career paths, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go take drama, and all my friends were like, why? Why would you do that? And so for some reason, I did that. I was the outlier, and that got me into college. And when I graduated college, I was like, now I know what I want to do. I'm gonna direct plays and take over the world like that. And then there was 7 people in the audience, and I was like, how can I have a bigger impact? And someone was like, what about film and television? So then I moved to LA, and I was like, all right, I'm here to direct films. And I didn't get much response. And so someone gave me the sage advice of, hey man, if you want to direct, you got to write. And so I started creating a body of work that got, you know, bigger and bigger and bigger. And I did some shorts along the way, but I started to create stuff that, you know, someone like you could say, oh, I could take this and sell this. And that was kind of how I found, you know, a way to be creative and make my work and make a living at it.
for me, kind of the cliche, you know, just grew up loving movies, wanting to work in movies, probably thinking that I would be a writer or director, and then going to film school realized that wasn't for me. I don't think I had the patience to edit. I wasn't all that good at writing, to be honest. I certainly couldn't act. I mean, but I wanted to be involved. So going out to LA was a natural choice for me after, and someone had said to me, many people had said to me, working at an agency was the best way to see everything. And, you know, those first few years there, I really did. And, you know, working on those desks for, you know, senior partners and getting to meet all these people, you know, sort of told me that, you know what, I don't want to be an agent, but I want to continue to learn. So I came to New York, and I went and I worked for Scott Rudin, who's, you know, whoever doesn't know, is a very big producer. And I think we made 5 movies in 1 year, which is remarkable, to be honest. I can't even believe any of us survived it. I think we did The Royal Tenenbaums and Zoolander, Changing Lanes, Iris, The Hours. Maybe there was a 6th, Orange County. So we did 6 movies that year. And afterwards, I was like, you know what? I've seen the producing side now. I've seen the agent side. And I was like, I would love to go work for a director. And I had worked closely with Wes on Royal Tenenbaums. And then I had gotten a call that there was this guy, and I'd seen his film, Mark Room for a Dream, and I was like, you should meet with this guy, Darren Aronofsky, because he's got this company, Protozoa. They have an office in Hell's Kitchen. And I was like, all right, I'll meet this guy. I mean, he made an awesome movie, and I'd seen Pi and loved the soundtrack and all that. I sat down with him, and he was just like the coolest guy. And I was like, yep, I'm in. So I started doing development for him and stayed there a few years, and I promise this is coming to a point. I stayed there for a few years, and the funny thing about working for someone like Darren as like a development person is it took me 3 years to realize he was never going to direct anything that I had developed or brought to him that he hadn't written. I tried like hell to get him to do Watchmen, Collateral, Inside Man, I mean, a dozen others, and just, you know, it wasn't happening. He was always going to write, you know, the films he would direct later. So anyway, after all these years of doing that, the reason I chose to be a manager was because it allowed me to go back to what I really fell in love with, which was, you know, kind of being an agent, you know, representation. But I love the development process. I love, you know, taking an idea, turning it into a script. I love the selling process. I love all of that. Not so good at post-production and production per se, but I love the process leading up to that. And so, I don't know, in a weird sort of way, like, this being a manager was the perfect job, and being a manager in New York gave me such an advantage because there's so few of us here, you know, and so I did it on my own for a long time, but ultimately the big companies, you know, the Anonymous Contents and the Management 360s and the 3 Arts, you know, came knocking, and they're like, what are you doing? Join us. You know, you'll have Tina Fey and Amy Poehler and all these people, and we produce shows like Broad City and Brooklyn Nine-Nine and Mindy and, you know, all this stuff, and I was like, no. And then eventually you're like, yeah, because you're not an idiot. Anyway, that's it.
Awesome, nice answer. What was the most important skill or resource you've used or relied on to get to where you are today?
For me, I realized very early on that I was going to have to work probably twice as hard as everybody else around me in order to get, you know, to where I am. So I think, for me, there's never been a plan B, you know, and I treated acting since day one like a 9 to 5, you know. I would stay at every single audition. I don't know if you guys have ever done theater, but Jesus Christ. There's like 3 tiers of people that they see. So it's equity members, and it's like the equity membership candidate members, and then there's the trashy actors like me. They're just like outside, like they don't even give you water. And they're already like, these shows are already cast, you know, but it's like this fake hope of walking in there. So I did hundreds of those. But the skill that I have, well, 2 things. I think I would like to believe that I have an eye for story, right? This is helping me now. Like more so, some people are really good at characters, and I'm good at characters. I can figure that out, but I know what stories speak to me, you know, and I have a high bullshit meter. That's why LA and I don't really don't really mess
Bullshit in New York too. Don't get it twisted.
But listen, in New York, it's a smaller circle, and the thing is, if you keep talking bullshit in New York, eventually that circle's gonna be like that circle's gonna turn around, and you're not gonna be a part of it. And don't get me wrong, I love LA. It's given me the career of a lifetime. But Jesus Christ, it's all meetings with water bottles. That's all it is. You just go and you hydrate and you talk wonderfully, and not everything can be amazing all the time. And I feel like every time I walk away from something, it's like, that was amazing. I was like, it can't be. Not everything. It can't be. Somebody's got to hate me. Like, somebody has to. Sorry, the skill, to wrap it up, the skill, I guess, is just this blind belief in myself, this just complete, utter belief that I'm going to do what I love to do, you know? And just cutting the net behind me. There's no other choice. This is what I'm going to do, you know? And that's helped me when I was... When I became an equity membership candidate. That was a fantastic day though. I still have the card if you guys want it. You can have it. Thank you.
You're funny.
You should watch
I'm
Broad
trying to
City.
do it. Most valuable skill. You know, I think the most valuable skill that I've learned is to be of service. And I'll explain what I mean. When I left New York, I was a 25-year-old novelist, running around the city, doing whatever I wanted to do. You know, my people are from here. You know, and in New York, we cherish, you know, our novelists and playwrights, you know. So to be young and have that experience and to go out to LA and to be stripped of that, where people don't really care about books. I mean, that's not the right way to frame it and rephrase that. People care about books, but they listen to them. They don't necessarily read them. This is getting worse, so I'm just going to kill this part of the narrative and get to it. Bottom line is, no one cared what people cared about. It's getting worse. It was the story. It was serving the story and getting, what I did find in LA was a true sort of sense of collaboration and that everyone is important. The PA is super important. The PA is the CEO of being the PA, and if the PA doesn't show up, I was shooting this morning and a friend of mine, he's here, pitched in help as a PA and realized how hard it is and you know how much of yourself you have to give to serve, and that it's very important. And if you mess up that one little piece, that everybody, the whole production is falling behind. And so I found that being an intern for 4 long years taught me how to even be of service to myself and check my ego at the door. My story's not working. You know, when I want to cast, you know, a certain type of face, why don't we just go with the unknown, who's the better actor? Like, serve the story, be of service to the story, be of service to the director that you're working for, be of service to the showrunner that you are there to assist, be of service to yourself, you know, show up to your work. I learned that no one's really going to care unless you figure out how to best serve the project that you are trying to bring to market. So I think that that's the gist of it. Service was not really something that was on my mind when I was here. And I learned in LA the hard way very fast that you're either good or you're not. There's no in between. And the only way to be good is to really figure out how you can best serve your own work.
I think LA, if you guys venture out there, is a place that humbles you in a very brutal fashion over and over and over again. There's so much failure, it's crazy. I know it's not what you want to hear. I've pitched, you know, 100+ time network pitches, and if you sell one of the 20 pitches of that round, you know, that's a huge success. And that means 19 people said, fuck off. They don't say fuck off, they just never call you.
Smiling. That was amazing.
But once you understand the language, you know that amazing means fuck off. And you just have to speak the language. But so I think the skill that makes you keep going, whatever that is, relentlessness, tenacity, whatever, you know, cliche word you want to throw in there, that is the only thing I think that has kept me going. Is just like, gotta get up again, gotta do it again, gotta try again. That has been the most important thing. because around every corner there is someone telling you no or why it can't be done, you know, regardless of what your level is. You know, once you get a bunch of money and you're doing a big production, there's still a million, you know, roadblocks that people put up or tell you why you can't do a certain thing. So just always, you know, crashing headfirst into that wall, that's, I think, super valuable.
Yeah, I think everything that they've said is spot on, especially just being of service. I'm a firm believer in that. But I think something people forget, especially in LA, less so in New York, in my opinion, is just to be decent. You know, it's so funny. I've been, I guess, doing this now 18 years, recently having turned 40. And, you know, I had one of my a former assistant I worked with is now, you know, the president of Paramount Pictures. You know, she's a total badass. And, you know, she was an assistant underneath me. And pretty proud of that. I'm pretty glad that I was nice to her, right? You never know. I mean, honestly, I see so many people treating each other so poorly, but I always remind myself, you know, to be decent to everybody, to try to, you know, be nice. I mean, it's not, there's such a mistake in this business to think that you need to be some sort of an asshole and go out there and bully people. And I'm not saying be a pushover and don't be assertive, because you have to be, but just be decent. That's it. And I look at some of my colleagues and some of my peers, and frankly, they're maniacs. And I guess that works for them, but it doesn't work for me. So, and if I'm gonna, you know, have some sort of an attitude or have a bad day, I try to, you know, my wife puts up with me, but I try to do that in a quieter place. Anyway, that's it.
Can I say something funny about being decent, actually? 9 years ago, about being decent, I disagree, no, I know about being decent. 9 years ago, I shot this student film, and the DP was super nice, and we got along really well. And one of the other actors was sort of addicted to this DP for some reason. I was like, what? Dude, we're doing a student film, like, calm down, like, go get your bottle of water, like, fucking chill. So then I love the show Narcos, I was fucking obsessed with it, and I called my agents, I was like, just get me a fucking audition, that's all I need, just get me an audition. They got me an audition. So the producers liked it. Everybody liked it. It was like cool. And then they went on my IMDb and they saw this little student film that I'd done. Turns out they sent it to the DP, who is now one of the directors of Narcos. And so when it came across his desk, he was like, "Fuck yeah, I'll be 7 months with that guy. That guy was awesome." And it's just such a I guess it's counter. First of all, fucking 9 years, guys. So you know. It's a marathon. I hope it's a sprint for you. I hope, you know, you guys blow up as soon as you leave this room. It's the thing. But being decent, I swear to God, it will get you. It will just, you need to be stuck with these people for months and sometimes on location. Nobody wants to be stuck with a douche, you know? You have to be most of the time, but you know, given the choice, and always see how people treat somebody that can do nothing for them. Because that's what will tell you what type of artist they are, you know?
I would say to the women in the room, and this is to your being assertive, it's very easy to take the service thing a little too far, in terms of, you know, responding to someone's need to be nurtured. And I would just, you know, remind you, and as I remind myself, that it is not your job, and it's your job to compete. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that, to go out there. You can still be nice and whip somebody's ass with a smile, because really at the end of the day, what it comes down to is who has a story that's going to reach people in a certain way, and that's a big part of what it comes down to, but it also comes down to who can withstand the pressure and who is going to be there in the end, you know, at the end of the 7-month period, who's going to be left standing, you know. And I find that a lot of women in the industry tend to get forced into a corner where they have to sort of shrink themselves and make other people feel bigger. And they're not just men that take advantage of this. Some women in power take advantage of this as well. And I would just remind you that it hasn't necessarily served the women before you. So it makes no sense to, you know, just go ahead and be a badass, and you know, you can be nice, but be firm and be clear about what your goals are, and speak clearly, and make sure that you are heard when you step into a room.
Spot on. I think we can all agree with what's recently happening in the business. You can see what happened with the Weinstein Company, what's going on, and how he abused his power. He was someone that was tremendously, I guess, feared. And as quick as you can go up is as quick as you can come down, you know. And he didn't treat
Long, quick.
Yeah.
I understand.
This hyper masculinity is so idolized. Of like, you know, like you were saying, like some people think that in order to like be a good producer, you have to just be like, you look at other people like, wow, that guy really yelled at people in front of me. That guy must know what he's doing. It's bullshit. It really is, you know. And trust me that eventually your attitudes will come back to haunt you over and over again. And if you have the amount of Catholic guilt that I deal with, it will haunt you for the rest of your life. So, you know, be a good person.
Yeah, a lot of people think that is just a normal, like you just have to put up with that. I had a boss who used to come, he would stand behind my desk 2 inches away from me and he would go, "You think you're gonna be a writer? You're never gonna be a writer. You're never gonna make it. You're never gonna make it, you know that?" Dead serious, every day he would tell me that. And then I would like go hide, there was like, we had a closet with snacks, and I would go in the closet with the snacks and I would type. Recently that guy asked me for a job. But I was always super nice to everyone that I worked with and try to be respectful, and those people come back around. My wife was telling a story on the panel earlier that she did a 99-seat play with someone, and then when we first did our first iteration of the web series, American Cocoa, which we just put on YouTube, you know, we sent it to them, and that guy's wife was Viola Davis, and she was like, "Oh, I want to produce that." And because he had a great experience, you know, we remained connected. It was just one of those things, and I got, you know, my first assistant job a similar way, where I was just really nice to this guy. His mom turned out to be the showrunner of the show. I had no idea. He was an assistant editor, and I was working in post, and I like, you know, covered for him one day. And then when her assistant left, he was like, "Hey man, my mom's looking for an assistant. What about you?" And I was like, "Who's your mom?" He's like, "Your boss." I was like, "Oh, fuck."
I'm not a nice person. I'm a kind person. I'm from here. I know, I mean, most of the white people that I know here don't consider themselves white. They're from New York. They are Russian or Greek or Italian or Jewish, you know. And so New Yorkers have a certain way about speaking that doesn't necessarily help us out in LA and to be nice of it all. And what I'll say to that, since I'm back home in New York, and I know I've got some native New Yorkers out here, and other people who are very passionate, what I'll say is to just do the work. Right? Because when the work is strong, you don't necessarily be kind, clearly. We are a kind group of people. We will help you if you're lost. We'll tell you how to get to where you need to be on the train. New Yorkers are very kind people, but we don't come across as being very nice people. And that's fine. That's fine. It hasn't hurt me. What hurts me is to not have a script when I should have my own script ready to go. And what hurts me is to be afraid to step out and direct on my own. That hurt me. Being, you know, super sweet was great, but it does nothing if you don't have your work done. So we can be New Yorkers and we can be ourselves as long as you have your work finished and it's tight by New York standards.
What has been your greatest challenge or obstacle you've overcome in your career so far?
The greatest obstacle I've overcome in this career. I mean, like pick one today. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the constant fear of. Especially right now, coming out with my own show has been scary as shit. It's been really fun, but it's like I'm not hiding behind some other writer's words or a producer's words. I mean, Billy Lynn tanked, but it wasn't on me. I did my job, you know. And this is my voice, you know. And so obstacles that I've found also that now that I'm sort of a boss, you know, like I've started treating people the way I like to be treated when I was working on other people, but. I guess my biggest obstacle today, you know, is knowing when to let go of something that's not working. I tend to fight. Sometimes you'll find yourselves with a script you really fucking loved, and there was a sketch that you really believed in, and it's not working. Like it's just not, and you're trying to workshop the shit out of it, and because it's so personal. And at some point, you gotta kill your babies, man. You have to. And you have to, you have to also, I believe that you have to leave a little blood in the water, for anything you do. If you're asking somebody to come see your work, whatever it is, for however much money it is, you have to leave a little piece of yourself, in my mind, to it, right? And so it's gotta hurt a little bit. And letting go of things that you really believed in is really my most constant obstacle. But you gotta, and you know it. That's the problem, that you're fighting against your own instinct because there's a voice in the back of your head being like, just kill it, man. Just do it. Just kill it. And you're like, no, it's gonna be beautiful. You hear me? Everybody's gonna love it. That's the other voice. It has an accent. It's a great voice. But yeah, just letting things go is really hard for me.
Turning down the money is a big problem for me because I come from a poor family. It was culturally rich, well-traveled, educated, but they made all of the right choices, like morally, like I'm not doing that, and I'm big, and all the right choices. It didn't really, we suffer financially, but we had our, the principle, And so for me, stepping out on my own as a director was difficult because I was being offered writing jobs. Like once you do kind of crack in, it's just like there are not that many people there are a lot of people with great ideas, but they're not, and there are a lot of people with talent, but there are not a lot of people who can arc 65 hours of television, right? So people just start calling you, they're calling your reps. Do you want to work on this? You want to work on that? You want to work with Fincher? Do you want to work with this person? Do you want to work with? And the reality of it is that I had to say no to a lot. Like I chose to work with Damon Lindelof because I loved his writing. I didn't want to work on The Leftovers. I was just about to shoot my own project, and I was like, dang, this is like the 15th job that I've turned down. I just don't have the money to turn this down. And I was like, to turn these jobs down. I only went to go work with Damon because I really respected him as a writer and knew I would learn. But it took me, it took a year of my time, like out of my own element. And it can be really difficult to say no to stability and say no to like the prestige that comes from working on an HBO drama, Everyone says, if you ask someone asks you like, well, what are you doing with your life? And you say, I work for HBO, I'm on The Leftovers. They go, oh my God, they want to talk to you all about Kevin Darby. But if you say, oh, I'm working on an indie project and it shoots in Paris and it's about this and that, and it just, the blank stare that you get is a little frightening on top of the fact that you don't have any money. So it's, so you kind of find yourself, I found myself just kind of wanting that feeling of just like being stable and important. And I was like, I gotta give that up because it's not going to serve me. And so, just kind of plowing through those urges to just give in, just like my life could be easy and comfortable. It's not worth it to give in if you actually have the talent and you have a voice to make something happen for yourself. So saying no has really been an obstacle. I've overcome it recently, but it's taken a while.
Why do we work in the job where everyone comes up and checks our credits? Like, excuse me, what do you do? You're like, oh, I'm a writer. Well, what, have I seen what you've written? I'm like, motherfucker, have you saved, you're a doctor, have you saved anybody that I know? It's like, everywhere you go, they want to check. Have you done anything that, I don't know what you've seen, lady. I would say every new project is the biggest challenge. Like, I think it's always going to get easier, and it never gets any easier. It's always some new complication. When we were doing, a web series for a $3,000 budget, that was the hardest thing ever. And then we did it with, 100 times more money, and it was the hardest thing ever. And, the first show that I ever sold, that was the hardest pitch that I had ever done. The last show that I just sold, that was the hardest thing that I'd ever done. So it's always some new challenge and kind of like puzzle. And I think that's what I like about the industry, is that it's never the same. You're always, going into a room with different people who have different tastes. You're always figuring out how to pitch something in a new way that's going to land. And I think I enjoy that part of it, even though it is always, a different challenge. There's something exciting that keeps you engaged, and it doesn't have that monotony of like a normal, stable job. But it's more fun, I think.
I can't really answer it better than anyone here, but for me personally, it's, from the other side of things, I represent probably, 35 or 40 writers and directors, and my day truly starts with no, and that's like where I begin every single day. Every single day it starts with no. And so when I finally get the yes and call the clients, and then they say no, and then that's very disheartening for me, but I get it, right? Like, I have their back and I support them, and it's about them, it really is. But I think the hardest thing for a rep to overcome is, on a daily basis, is getting out of bed in the morning and picking up the phone and just kind of staying positive and optimistic. And then, on the other side of that, it's very hard to tell your clients that something's not going to happen. I mean, it's brutal. It's heartbreaking when you see how much blood, sweat, and tears they put into everything they do. Making that call is brutal, and it's 1,000 times worse for them. I can only empathize. I'm not in their shoes, but there's a lot of rejection in the business, and I think I think what Miles was saying about perseverance, and Arturo was saying about obstacles. Like, well, let's talk about today. I mean, it's truly every day. So it's too hard to say there's one thing, but I think just perseverance and getting by day by day. That's it.
I'd just like to ask, what is next for everyone, and then we'll go into the Q&A.
I shot a show called No Activity with Will Ferrell and J.K. Simmons and these guys, and that's coming out November. And Alternatino, hopefully you'll be seeing that next year. And and a movie with Clive Owen called 3 Seconds. It's a drama. I'm very grateful, man, that I've been able to start doing drama now too, because it's very easy. What you were saying about people start calling you for the same thing over and over again. It's really hard for people to not just hear me talk like this whenever they walk into a room, which I love the character. Jaime's gonna be forever a part of me, but you want to expand, and I feel very grateful that we're doing some dark, dingy drama that makes me cry when I go home at night. So yeah, you should watch all of them and cry with me.
I just finished, production on a Parisian-based short film. We call it a series short. It's like a short film, but for television, called The Paris Project, which is screening about an hour and a half or so, and just premiered on Vice about a month or so ago. And just sold a show to TNT. It's a Brooklyn-based show that I'll be developing pretty soon.
Give me that look. You know how hard it is.
Yeah, but we also know development. It's like people or whatever do.
We just put out a digital show that my wife and I produced with Viola Davis on ABC called American Cocoa, which is screening here. What venue is it, Quiba? Syndicated tonight at 6. I'm leaving tomorrow to go shoot a pilot for Sci-Fi with the Russo brothers that I wrote and am producing. And I just sold a show to Amazon that I'm in development on.
I am producing a show for Fox based on a Stephen King property. I'm a huge horror fan, so I'm so excited for next year. I'm right now producing a movie with Michael Bay called Hunting El Chapo at Sony. It's kind of self-explanatory what it's about. I don't know. Couple things I'm excited about there.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for being here. I love the panel. My question is, I'm an actress here, but I also really love to write. And I didn't study writing. I do study acting. But my question is, what is it that you guys do to polish your writing? How do you get your story better? Do you tap into certain resources? Do you suggest taking classes? Because there's stories that I really believe in, and I know there's something in there, and the fulfillment I get when I create a scene or finish a script, I'm like, okay, there's stuff here, but how do you take it to the next level?
I'm a firm believer in the development process, meaning I'm probably 7 or 8 drafts in before I consider myself to have something that I can consider a first official draft. And so for me, having a team of people to filter my work through matters, and also training on certain skills, like training on writing in cinematic conflict, opposition, stakes, like all of these are individual, like tiny little muscles that need to be worked. The same way like Kobe Bryant practices, you know, he plays and then he also practices on his own. I go home and then I'll dial into a, you know, conference or with other writers and we're training on the same skills. So it's the training and the constant rewriting. That's how I get drafts in.
Yeah, I mean, so many drafts. The pilot that I'm doing right now is probably 30 drafts that we've done on that before. We're gonna shoot it, and we're probably gonna rewrite, you know, stuff on set on the day. So the short answer is that it's never done. It's never fully polished. But you have to kind of develop a group of people around you who you trust, who you feel like you can get feedback from. That's not going to be like, even if it's good, they're going to be like, well, it's kind of, you know, they're going to like shit on you. You want to find positive people that are also honest and helpful and understand story. You can take a class, you can get a book. I never went to school for writing, but I went to school and I learned about storytelling. So there's no, you know, it just whatever works for you. If you read a book, like I thought Save the Cat was a great book. You know, like some people don't like that book. They think it's simple, but it gave me a lot of ideas, you know, and it helped me understand the structure of a movie because I was coming from theater. That I take everything out of that book and use it as my methodology. No, I kind of made my own, but you know, sometimes it's helpful to get a base of what someone else does, and then you can kind of develop your own technique.
Thank you all for everything you just shared with us. You're all such a strong sense of self. I love it. You've given us so much. I'm an actor, and I'm trained in the theater. I've done a lot of theater all over the country, you know, over in London and in New York. And I made a decision recently that I wanted to do more film and television. And the difficulty I'm having is when you go away and do theater in the regions or any place else, you miss out on a whole lot what's going on here in New York. There's a lot more opportunity now in New York for actors to get some screen time. So I came back from a gig and I decided I'm gonna stay put. And I was fortunate enough to be cast in a web series, so I'm excited about that. And so I'm telling my agents, like, do not send me out for anything, you know, as far as, you know, theater in out of town. So my question is, what advice or suggestions do you have for someone like me who's making a decision to do more film and television and to stay away from the regions? You know, I mean, I'm giving up a lot. I'm giving up healthcare opportunities. I'm giving up my pension stuff. So it's a sacrifice, I know, but I'm willing to do it. And things are happening for me. I'm really grateful for what is happening. But yeah, that's my question. Anybody can answer that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You should, especially if you haven't done a lot of it, I think you should like practice and fail in front of a camera many times. You can do it by yourself, you can do it, but seriously, listen, two things. Acting in a movie and auditioning are two different animals. You know, people like to believe it's the same. I mean, talent is talent, whatever, you know, in whatever way, shape, or form, but it's sort of you go in there, it's like a first date, man. You gotta get that, you know what I'm saying? I know some of the most amazing actors in the world that cannot audition to save their lives, you know? For you, I would say, I don't know how important this is from a rep perspective, but like my life changed, or my career changed once I got a reel, you know? Like a decent reel. You know what shitty reels look like. You know what they look like. Don't get a shitty reel. Anything super overly dramatic or sort of racist at the top is like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm not gonna hire you. So, and like, you know what I found recently? People, you know, young actors or actors at different stages of their careers hit me up, and I'm like, I found this sort of service. I think it's called Real Services or whatever. But you come with an idea, they sort of write a script for you for a scene, and they shoot it in a very professional way. And I don't know if they've had success with it or not, but man, don't do a shitty reel. That's all I'm trying to say. But what I'm saying is like, I would also recommend these things sometimes work and sometimes they're a pay-for-play thing that are ridiculous. But places like One-on-One NYC and the Actors Green Room you have to filter it yourself, but they worked for me back in the day. I don't know what it's like now, but to get into film and TV, I would suggest writing your own work and shooting it with a few of your friends. And then from that, getting a nice reel, you know? That would be the best case scenario. Otherwise, go pay $100 for a 10-minute session with a casting director who's probably just the assistant of the assistant who's gonna sit there with you, you know? I realize that this all sounds really bleak, but don't worry, like, it gets better, like, it gets awesome. Like, the job is amazing, you know, and you guys will all get there. It's just...
It's horrifying until it gets awesome. Yeah. It is just a survivor's game. If you can last, then you can have a career. It's the tenacity, and most of us are traumatized children. We're used to this. We last. We just outlast everyone. So don't worry, it is bad, but it does get good later.
It does get good, guys. It gets better.
Every part that I've gotten is because my wife wrote it, so I can't help
Hi. So I work in writing and production, and you all mentioned how a lot of the industry really is out west, and how for some of you, you really kind of hit your stride professionally once you went out there. For those of us who are, at least for now, still based in New York or just aren't able to get out there yet, what resources or what kind of, you know, stride-hitting resources are there for us here in the city that are unique or beneficial that you think would be worth tapping into?
You have the city. I mean, you have the best location. Like, it's just, for shooting, if you want to make your own shit, like, it just looks great. Like, when you shoot in LA, there's some very cool places to shoot, but everyone is going to be on your ass every second. Like, we one time, like, stopped, we were stealing a shot. My sister and I were stealing a shot, like, in a pullout in Malibu, like, up in a canyon, and a guy walked down his driveway and said, "Hey guys, do you have a permit?" And we were like, no, we don't. And he's like, "Well, then you guys have to leave." And I don't think that happens as much in New York. It's just LA is such a film town. People are watching for that and looking for quote unquote professional stuff. So I think you can get away with more stuff out here.
I would say is, you're a writer? Okay. So what I would do is, here's the main difference that I've noticed, and this is not about writing in all of New York. It's just that in my circles, writing is not considered like, people, they write and they do a bunch of other things, right? And the people that you're competing against for jobs, for shows, they are only writing 12 hours a day, right? And so what writing means is training. And what training means is reading the AFI Top 100, reading the WGA Top 100, doing a genre flood of your specific genres, even if you have more than one. Really getting into the craft, studying the showrunners, and knowing why certain showrunners work for you, what the difference is between writing television and writing film. Those skills are often not transferable. Ask David Fincher what happened in his show on HBO. Ask HBO why they had to pull Westworld after $100 million in. Ask what happened to Get Get Down. Steve McQueen, I can go on. Those skills are not necessarily transferable. They are in some cases. So I would just dig into writing and become like centered in yourself as a writer and take it really seriously and treat yourself like an athlete. Drink green juices, eat well. When you get tired, you figure out what your rituals are to kind of pep you back up. And like sometimes you only have 4 hours in you, but add an hour maybe every week. Maybe for these 2 weeks you can only do 4 hours. The next 2 weeks you can do 6. If you have a job, 6 hours in the evening. If you don't have a job, where you're writing 12-hour shifts, two 6-hour shifts, right? And with an hour and a half break. You can get yourself there, you'll move faster as a writer, and by the end of the year, God only knows you'll be able to track your growth a lot differently, and then become competitive, because at the end of the day, who you are matters less than what you're able to create. So that's what I would do. I would throw myself into writing hand over fist as if you were trying to get to the NBA.
I've strictly worked in New York. I just go out to LA to shoot and to sell shows, So I can tell you it's completely possible. And one thing that worked for me is I started, really the NYU and Columbia University, like grad school programs, those people are usually always looking for somebody to help them out, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would start, because what happens in these circles, and they don't have to be these two schools, But what happens to these circles is a sort of community starting to get formed, right? And they go off and do production companies together. So I would like check out the films that you like and then just start contacting people and partner up, man. Because it is a smaller community, but the benefit to that is like once you're in, like there are so many resources available to you, you know?
I'm trying to get into producing films and like writing films, which is, you know, why I guess we're all here. But I'm from California and I moved out to New York because I wanted to get into artistry and like what does it mean for me as an artist to even create. And I'm not so really into like the Hollywood aesthetic within like meaning like popular genres. Like I'm really into like what people would call like avant-garde or like
It's avant-garde in LA.
yeah.
The whole world is watching what LA is making right now. I'm sorry, I'm cut you off guard.
No.
Being defensive. This is why.
No, I'm sorry. I'm from California.
She can say it, she's from California. You see, this is a scene that you should really be writing. There's conflict, there's subtext, it's brilliant. Give me more, go on.
So my point is that I do want to get into the Hollywood business because like it seems like you guys are like working and like earning capital. I mean, you came from like family that has like integrity and like artists and stuff, but you also
We're broke. Yes.
yeah, you were broke. And so, you know, I want to be that, but then I also like don't want to just be broke, or like I just really want to make art, you know. And everyone,
Who makes movies that you think are avant-garde that are also released commercially?
I guess Ava DuVernay is like someone who I'm looking at right now, and I mean, that's really it. I mean,
I would say that maybe you're not so interested in avant-garde as much as just stories that are more reflective of the topics that you're interested in, and there's certainly a way to do that and make a living. Like the industry used to be that you had to make stuff for everybody, and now what we're seeing is that everyone is targeting, you know, smaller and smaller groups, and you're seeing stuff that's more and more specific to different people. And, you know, obviously it's making TV especially a lot better. But, you know, identify what you want to talk about and write a movie about it. Or if you want to produce movies, then, you know, then start meeting some of the people around here and figure out how you can be helpful to them to further their work. But there's certainly a way that you can make a living, you know, look at Ava. You know, there's other people coming up behind her that are interested in telling stories like that, and, you know, they're going to make a way.
Read scripts. Call someone's office like Monday, call about 20 offices, production offices, and ask them if they have any room for an intern to read scripts. You read and you write coverage. You write coverage. When your coverage is good, then that person will more than likely start depending on you, on your opinion, and they'll ask you to assist on the desk. That's the fastest way in.
Well, first I'd like to thank the Bushwick Film Festival for having us here. It's the 10th year anniversary for putting this amazing panel together. Shout out to Quebe if you're here.
Good job, Quebe.
All right, and everyone else at Bushwick for putting this together. Thank you.
Thank you.